But when we talk about sovereign AI, and you talked about digital public infrastructure, and we've got that layer done in India, what else will it take to be able to build this out in the way that you just spoke of?
So, I mean, in India, there are two things. One is India for India.
Yeah.
So use the India stack to drive local implementation, local startups, both addressing the large consumer market and the huge business side of things. Then there's a second piece, which is India for the world. And you think about, all of our global systems integrators like TCS, Infosys, et cetera, as well as the global capability centers, I think that there's 800 of them that we're involved in. All of them are creating value in India for the world. Startups and companies like, Omesh's, Unifor, also addressing that. Because India has this huge base of intellectual capital, of technical skills capability, and the skills is growing exponentially. And we've been training over 100,000 people in India just since I was last there. So it's an explosion of skills being imparted to this large body of engineering talent, which can enable India for the world.
So from an NVIDIA perspective, you spoke about talent. You've got 4 centers in India already. You're talking to the Tatas and Infosys and Reliances of the world. But the role and relevance of India as we enter this AI era, what do you see the role that India will play outside of just providing talent?
No, I think that in the old model was you'd bill by the hour. Now you're going to bill for the output of the AI factory. That's the key point. So people will automate, and enhance a process using AI, and you'll export that process. And I'm pretty sure the business models in terms of how customers are going to pay for it are actually going to change over time. Because once you're in a factory model, you can actually bill by the unit volume instead of billing for the hour, right? And imagine if your employee is so much more productive, how could you possibly have a low hourly rate? It makes no sense. So, a whole bunch of business models are going to change as a result of this, new way of doing business with an AI factory. Now, it does require one thing, and that is really good AI infrastructure locally.
Yeah,
right.
and that's not that easy to get by at this point in time. I mean, there is a supply-demand mismatch. What's the wait time as far as NVIDIA chips are concerned today?
The lead time for a full data center is significantly long. We're talking 6 months, from the time you place an order to the time, and that's really fast. Most times it'll take 1 year from the time you place an order to the time you turn on your AI factory or AI data center. And so, lead times, irrespective of the amount of demand and supply, the lead times are going to be long.
And the costs?
The costs, in terms of the throughput, the output per watt, per outcome, I think the costs are going to go down over time because the models are going to get better and so on and so forth.
Shankar, we've been talking about AI and generative AI specifically as being an accelerant, as being an enabler. But let's also talk about the disruption that it's going to cause. I mean, it's a nice way to put it, efficiency, but at the end of the day, we're talking about people, we're talking about jobs. What is it going to mean? If the last big shift of what we saw with the cloud, how different is this going to be?
I mean, every time there's a new technology wave of innovation, going back to the steam engine or the automobile, obviously people's time is freed up, and new activity starts to happen in the economy. So if there is people get more time as a result of AI delivering huge amount of productivity gains, then it's extremely likely that time will be used for creating new economic activities and creating new value and higher GDP, for sure.
Well, that's the hope. But, there is a downside as well. I mean, if these bets don't pay off.
No, I mean, obviously, each individual case will be different. And obviously, some people will face a skills challenge. They've got to relearn themselves. And everybody should be a learning person, a learning machine, so that, as things change, you learn new skills. You used to ride a horse cart. Now you need to, learn how to drive a car, right?
Yeah.
And I think the analogies are very similar in this AI age. We all have to learn new skills. Now, obviously, some people will lose their jobs just as, in other cycles they did. But I think the role of society has to be to look after those people and offer the opportunity for those people who want to reskill themselves and address the new challenge.
So how are you seeing competition at this point in time? I mean, clearly, you've got 90+% of the market, but there are others who are now looking at getting into the chips business and hopefully bring down the costs as well, so that this becomes there is deeper penetration. But how do you see competition?
I mean,
and what big tech is doing?
we partner with everybody.
Yeah.
So, even if they want to, in some areas, be competitive, we want to be their partner in a vast, large number of spaces. So that's our position. And the market, especially at this point of time, is growing. And so
What is your expectation of how large the addressable market could be over the next few years?
I mean, if you think about AI as, instead of being an IT problem, instead of AI being just IT, if you think about it as pervasive everywhere, then it's the whole global economy. All of healthcare, all of government, right? All of telecom is addressable using AI. The question is, what's the business model? Now, notice some companies will address different parts of that ecosystem. And so we actually, instead of competing, we want to actually collaborate with more companies in the ecosystem to really build out this AI, this new AI industrial revolution.
And that involves also making bets on startups, which is something that you're looking at.
We love working with startups. I mean, we have thousands of startups in our program in India and globally. In fact, we disproportionately put more resources on startups and developers and researchers than we do on enterprise.
What do you look for when you're looking at betting on a startup, investing in a startup, collaborating with a startup? What do you look for?
I mean, basically, we look for the opportunity to make our platform useful, to help the startup be more productive, to help the startup address new markets, to solve these hard problems that startups want to solve. Any startup, by definition, is trying to solve a hard problem. That's why they started the company.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we want to be involved with them.
Umesh, let's talk about the road ahead and the opportunities that you just spoke of. What is that going to mean now in terms of ARR? When we last spoke, you were targeting $1 billion. What's the plan on that front? And what about a possible IPO? I know that you've always said if the conditions are right, you will consider that possibility. Are the conditions right?
Well, Shireen, I'm sure you're seeing the US markets as much as we are.
Yes, it's hard not to.
Well, I think with the interest rates being where they are, et cetera, we are seeing software multiples, except companies like NVIDIA and the top 5 or 6 companies in S&P. So clearly, conditions for tech IPOs aren't ripe. That's why we haven't seen too many in the last couple of years. As far as Uniphore is concerned, I think in 16 years, I've seen times where we were the only ones talking about conversational AI and some dedicated partners like NVIDIA supporting us. Right now is the most exciting phase. The whole world wants AI. Everyone's become my competitor. Some deals we compete with the hyperscalers, and other deals we cooperate with them and they partner with us.
So are you excited or are you afraid?
Well, I'd say this is a much better phase of company building than being at the lonely end where we were the only ones educating the whole market. We've actually seen our growth accelerate in the last couple of years, and we're continuing to assume that to be true for the foreseeable future. So speaking of accelerated ARR journeys up to $1 billion, we are staying the course. In fact, if anything, I'm pushing my team to see, because of this wave, can we get there faster? And once again, going public is going to be it's not the destination.
Right.
It's going to be a milestone. On our board, we have people like John Chambers. I want to build this company for a very long period of time. And so there'll be a time for that milestone. Once again, it's market dependent. There are stuff that we don't control. But right now, we're working with companies that we never could have imagined. We're working with customers who are way bigger than us, and they're bringing us into their boardrooms to make presentations about how we're going to help them with their AI. We're working with partners who are willing to go the distance with us. And people don't realize this. NVIDIA and us, we've been working for the last 5 years, way before the Gen AI wave was hotter.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's partners like NVIDIA who, like Shankar said, really put their energy behind supporting companies like Uniphore to become the next generation of Cisco's or Oracle's, et cetera, because they realize if they grow the ecosystem, they grow with us, and vice versa.
Thank you so much to
Thank
the
you
two
for
of
your
you
time.
for speaking with us here on the 10th edition of Voices from the Valley. It's been absolutely educational to get a sense of where we are headed in this AI era and what we could be looking at over the next few years. Thanks very much for your time. Well, we are going to take a break here on Voices from the Valley, but return with more conversations. For now, from all of us, goodbye and many thanks for watching.